Everyone, welcome to this weather briefing for Monday, April 28th, 2025 to Tuesday, April 29th, 2025. So let's get started. Here's the severe weather outlook for Monday, April 28th, 2025. It is currently level 1 out of 5, marginal risk for severe weather, and locations that are currently in it include Sullivan, St. Clair, Union, Washington, Herman, Jonesburg, Wentzville, Troy, Winfield, St. Charles, Chesterfield, Eureka, Arnold, and St. Louis in Missouri. Edwardsville, Warden, Staunton, Alton, Brighton, Grafton, Jerseyville, Hardin in Illinois. And there's actually a level 2 out of 5 slight risk for severe weather for northwestern Lincoln County in Missouri. The tornado risk is mainly up in the area of that slight risk with a 2% risk for tornadoes. And the wind risk is very low with a 5% risk for damaging winds in those marginal and slight risk areas. The main risk, I believe, will be severe hail, with the slight risk area being under 15% risk for severe hail, and the marginal risk area being under a 5% risk severe hail, which means that in that 5% area you could see penny-sized hail or larger. In that 15% risk area you could see penny-sized hail or larger. Here is the severe weather outlook for Tuesday, April 29th, 2025. There are two risk areas. One is a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk for severe weather, and locations that are in that risk include Union, St. Clair, Sullivan, Eureka, Chesterfield, St. Charles, Winfield, Troy, Wentzville, Washington, Jonesburg, and Herman in Missouri. Alton, Brighton, Jerseyville, Grafton, Hardin in Illinois. And then there's a level 2 out of 5 slight risk for severe weather, and locations in that include DeSoto, Festus, Arnold, Eureka, and St. Louis in Missouri, Waterloo, Millstadt, Mascoutah, Lebanon, Highland, Edwardsville, Warden, and Staunton in Illinois. There's currently no tornado risk outlined for the St. Louis area. I believe the main threat for Tuesday, April 29th is going to be damaging winds, with the marginal risk area being under a 5% risk for damaging winds and a slight risk area being under a 15% risk for damaging winds. But the severe hail risk is very low with a 5% risk for severe hail, which means you could see penny-sized hail or larger. Now let's look at the timings for Monday, April 28, 2025. So these storms will start to get to the St. Louis area around 6 a.m. Tuesday, April 29th, and then go all the way. I believe the severe weather will be completed for Monday, April 28th around like 10 a.m. Now let's look at the timings for Tuesday, April 29th, 2025. So storms for Tuesday, April 29th, 2025 could start around 1 p.m. and then I believe the most intense part possibly will be around 3 p.m. and then the severe weather will be completed basically after that. The significant tornado parameter values show in between none to 1.3 for Monday, April 28, 2025. The significant tornado parameter values show for Tuesday, April 29th, 2025 to be basically nothing. The supercell composite shows for Monday, April 28th, 2025 to be in between 1.2 to 9.6. The supercell composite shows for Tuesday, April 29th, 2025 to be basically nothing. The max updraft helicity shows in between none to 72, which is equivalent to no hail to golf ball sized hail. The winds show for Monday, April 28th, 2025 to be in between 35.3 to 57.8 miles per hour. The winds for Tuesday, April 29th, 2025 show to be in between 26.2 to 48 miles per hour. The most unstable Cape convective available potential energy or storm fuel shows in between 90 to 2,470 joules per kilogram of storm fuel for Monday, April 28, 2025. The most unstable Cape Cape convective available potential energy or storm fuel shows in between 22 to 1,730 joules per kilogram of storm fuel for Tuesday, April 29th, 2025. The surface-based Cape convective available potential energy or storm fuel shows in between 20 to 1,510 joules per kilogram of storm fuel for Monday, April 28th, 2025. The surface-based Cape convective available potential energy or storm fuel shows in between 2,140 joules per kilogram of storm fuel for Tuesday, April 29th. The temperatures for Monday, April 28th, 2025 show in between 64.7 to 71.7 degrees. The temperatures for Tuesday, April 29th, 2025 show in between 58.9 to 77.7 degrees. The dew points show for Monday, April 28th, 2025 to be in between 60.5 degrees to 67.1 degrees. The dew points show for Tuesday, April 29th, 2025 to be in between 50.8 to 66.5 degrees. I will not be live for any of these events, so just have ways to receive warnings. So, bye-bye.